Good afternoon and welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest this afternoon is Richard Moore. Richard, you're very welcome to Destination Wellbeing.
Well, thank you, Joanne. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I first met Richard a number of years ago at an event that he was doing here in Uri, and your story of compassion and forgiveness just completely bowled me over, and has been one that I've shared with numerous clients at different stages.
Thank you.
Thank you for that inspiration.
Not at all,
because
thank you.
We often, so often things in life that happen, and they can be small things and they can be bigger things, but we can hold on to them a lot and let them impact on the rest of our lives. But you were able to, you're the complete embodiment of allowing yourself to build from challenges and adversity. But so I'm not, if you take a few minutes just and introduce yourself to our guests, because I know some of them may be familiar with your story, but maybe others who aren't. So.
Okay. Well, my name's Richard Moore, and I'm from Derry, and in 1972, when I was 10 years old, I was on my way home from school, and as I was running along the bottom of the football pitch at the school, I had to pass a British Army lookout post, and when I was about 10 feet away from it, a British soldier fired a rubber bullet. The rubber bullet hit me in the bridge of the nose, and I lost one eye and was left permanently blind on the left eye. So I've been blind now about 42 years.
Okay, yeah, and it's but it certainly hasn't been something that has, well, it has shaped your life, but in a very positive way. And I know that's a story that you're very keen, that you've shared on numerous occasions.
I think you're right. I mean, when I think back on what you would expect from a situation like that, all the things that people would imagine, you lose your eyesight as a result of being shot as a 10-year-old boy, then in many ways the story, probably based on the great scheme of things, should be very different. Mm-hmm. But for me, blindness has become a positive experience. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that. I mean, there are many things I like about blindness, and there's some, I suppose, good things about being a blind person. And the experiences that I have had as a direct result of being a blind person and the avenue that I've gone down, I can't separate all those good things from blindness itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's, as you say, so many people choose, and that, again, that's all, it comes back to our choice, doesn't it? But choose to go another way and take another path. But you've totally looked at the opposite, or looked at the benefits of that, and you've made such a huge difference to the lives of so many children across the world. I know through the Children in Crossfire charity, I mean, it's just, it allows for such, I'm even lost for words on that, but I've watched some of the Children in Crossfire stuff for a long time, and very recently the campaign on the importance of early years education and of educating children and giving them that power at such a young age is so to be commended. It's work that needs to be done on all levels, doesn't it?
Well, you're right, and I think what blindness has taught me, or the experience of being blind has taught me, is that, whatever difficulties you face, no matter how big the challenge, they are overcomable. Mm-hmm. You can navigate around it. The problem, I think, begins when you try to go through it rather than around it. And if you use the analogy of a brick wall, at the end of the day, if you try to walk through a wall, and in my case, the wall could have been blindness itself, then you're constantly hitting the wall and going no further, where I was able to navigate around it. And look, blindness, and I'm sure any disabled person out there would agree with it, blindness or any disability has its challenges. For me, it has its challenges too. Mm-hmm. But, I was able to acknowledge those challenges, feel them even, package them up and sit them on the shelf. And, my daddy always had a saying, never let one cloud spoil a sunny day. Mm-hmm. You could say my cloud was blindness, but there was the rest of the day to enjoy. There was the rest of the sunshine to enjoy, and I had so many things to offer. It's like I can't see my children, and I've always missed not seeing my children. But that doesn't mean I can't sit them on my knee and tell them a story. It doesn't mean I can't take them for a walk. It doesn't mean I can't, you know, giggle and laugh with them or watch a movie with them or whatever. So, but I could have allowed the one thing that I couldn't do to dominate my relationship with my children or dominate how I feel about blindness, and I didn't. And I don't know where that came from, to be honest, Joanne. I don't know if it was something that I made a decision about or it was just in me. I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
but
sometimes sometimes we never know in life what motivates us to make the choices that we make. But and one of the, I suppose, the words that's often used in association with your story is forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. And I know you do, the Dalai Lama is one of the patrons of children in Crossfire. And I think I've seen a quote somewhere along the line where the Dalai Lama said, I speak of forgiveness and Richard Moore lives forgiveness. That's the approach there. But I think a lot of people find forgiveness even a difficult topic to get their head around, as in, what is forgiveness? What are we saying when we say we forgive, and how does that fit in with how we move on and how we accept things, isn't it?
And I also think people sometimes feel that forgiveness is something that you give to other people. You hurt me, so I forgive you. And I think it's partly that. And when I talk about Charles the soldier, for example, Charles fired the rubber bullet that blinded me. So, you know, I forgive him. But I don't forgive him for Charles. So something that Charles can take away. I always say, if Charles wants my forgiveness, he has it. But it's about me. Forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. And it's about your happiness, about your peace of mind, your ability to let go. And, you know, people often said to me, like, for example, did Charles ever say sorry? Now, for the first 7 years that I knew Charles, he never said sorry. And he wouldn't say sorry. Now, I've never asked him to say sorry, but other people have. And the point is, I've never needed him to say sorry. And what happens is, as long as you require something from the person that hurt you in order for you to forgive them, then that is a key and a lock that they hold to something in your emotional development, in your mind, in your heart, that they need to unlock. Whereas when you don't need that, then all the doors are open. You can unlock anything in your own heart or mind.
And you keep, I suppose, the idea, I would do a lot of holistic work, and at the core of it, a lot of that is the power of forgiving ourselves. And forgiveness of others. And I would find that one of the biggest challenges that people have with that is what they see forgiveness as, because often they see it as saying what the other person did was okay, is the first step of it. But when we reverse that round and say, actually, no, forgiveness is about me setting myself free of the burden of whatever happened, that allows us a greater sense of openness. And as you say, you know, that person still has the power if they hold the keys, whereas if we take back the power into ourselves, we can give ourselves that amazing gift without needing it for anybody else, can't we?
That's right, you're right. And forgiveness is not about the other person, although the other person can benefit from your forgiveness.
Of course.
Or the other people. But forgiveness is about, like, why do you want to forgive? Why should you forgive? Well, the reason why you should give is because it makes you happy. You know, like the day that I met Charles, and I mean, I never felt that I needed to meet Charles, although I wanted to meet him. I was curious about him. You know, this individual that was in my life played such a significant role in my life, but I never knew who it was. So for that reason alone, I just wanted to meet him. But when I sat opposite him and I knew that I forgive him, and I was able to share it with him, it was just unbelievable. It was euphoric. And I can't describe it. I was walking on air, and I would, anybody, you know, that arrives at that point will experience it. And there's always a challenge, you know, particularly when you're talking about, say, that somebody who hurt a loved one rather than you personally. You know, that you're, you know, if a loved one was killed or whatever by somebody, and, you know, often people feel that they're betraying the loved one because they forgive the person, and they're not. They're not betraying the loved one. What they're doing is releasing something within themselves that allows them to move on. And it's amazing all the challenges then of justice, or all the well, for me, all the things then that you would think that are important don't become important anymore.
Yeah, because it's peace of mind and peace in your heart. That's the important part of it, isn't it?
And that's right. And you just feel that you've arrived somewhere where really nothing else matters to the same extent anymore. It also gives you a better understanding. You know, it allows you to be more open to understand sometimes even the perpetrator, like in my case. And I can't speak for every victim in the Troubles or everybody that's had a difficulty in their life. I can only speak and share what I've experienced, and the hope that somebody listening can find a way over the hump in the road that they're experiencing. And, you know, I just know that when I was able to forgive Charles, and I met Charles the soldier, that he became a human being. He became a person. And I've seen his vulnerabilities as well as the good things in his life, and him and I were able to relate as human beings, you know. And you know, anger, you know, you and I were talking about anger as well, Joanne, and the flip side of not forgiving somebody is the anger.
Yeah, that's the other side that goes with it, isn't it?
It is. And like, you know, anger is such a self-destruct emotion. It leaves you feeling so unhappy. Your health-wise, I have no doubt that it must damage you health-wise, although I'm not an expert in that. But, you know, and I talk to young people, I talk to adults, and at different events, and I always say to them, what would they rather see? Would they rather see an angry Richard Moore who wants the soldier to be locked up in a jail and the key thrown away? Or would they rather see the Richard Moore that forgives the person? And without exception, they always say they would rather see the Richard Moore that forgives the person.
Well, the Richard Moore that has forgiven the person has used that positivity to make such a difference in the lives of so many others. So not just for Richard Moore himself, and the you know, but the impact that has on those around, because no longer is that anger eaten away, and those regrets, and I've heard you speak as well about, you know, what I can't do. You know, I focus on what I can do rather than what I can't do. And for young people as well, that's such a powerful message, because we come across young people, and increasingly more and more, there seems to be a lot of young children who have limits in what they're able, what the world would see them as capable of doing. But that is only in the world's mind, really, isn't it?
And that's right. And you know, what is failure and what is success and all that sort of stuff. And to me, every human being, it doesn't matter who you are, we have some kind of what you might describe as limitations in our lives. We have some abilities and some disabilities, whether it be physical, whether it be something else. And the important thing is, first of all, I think, to accept yourself for what you are. I am a blind person. I was blinded by a British soldier. That's who I am. I can't run away from that. And, you know, the second thing is, no matter should I do cartwheels down through the main street in Uri tonight, I am not going to get my eyesight back, bar a miracle. So, do I spend my life lamenting after something that I'm never going to get? Or do I work within the limitations that life has presented me? And realise that my limitations are no different from anybody else's. They're maybe a bit more obvious sometimes, but every human being has their limitations. And the minute you can accept that, but also realise that you have your unlimited side to your ability as well, whatever that is.
Every person has their own gift that they can bring to the world, really, don't they? And it's maximising that and nurturing it and letting it out, focusing on it, and surrounding ourselves with people who can nurture and support those goals and those dreams.
And you know, when you think of some people, they get through torment in their life because they haven't got the results in the exam that they need, or they haven't been able to achieve whatever they thought they should have been able to achieve. And like, really, there's so much more to offer as a human being, that the things that they're actually that's dominant in their life in a negative way is so insignificant.
Yeah. And we have so many young people who are focused on all of those, as you say, exam results and so many different things. But one of my favourite quotes around that is, we're all geniuses, but if we judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, he'll spend his whole life believing he's stupid. And that's, you know,
that's right.
Each of us are unique and different with both limits and endless possibilities on that side.
And it's knowing what's important. What is important? Is it important that you get a grade A, or is it important that you care about the people you're with, that you're happy, that you're content with what you do? My parents, my daddy was an unemployed shoemaker. My mother was what you might describe as a homemaker. Yeah. And they were the two happiest people on the planet. And, you know, for me, they brought up a wonderful family. Now that, to me, you know, I just use that example because at the end of the day, they hadn't got a lot in life, but what they had, you couldn't buy.
Yeah,
and that was love and friendship and compassion and a happy home. Now, despite that, I still lost my eyesight, and they had to deal with the various traumas that life, you know, brought their way. But because I think the foundation was right with them, then they were able to deal with the things and also send out the right messages to me and others in terms of how to deal with that disability. And I remember my daddy, you know, going to see teachers in schools, going to talk to principals in schools. They put a mechanism in place so that I could have an education. You know, he just used his ability to make sure that I was at no disadvantage.
Yeah. And I mean, in the 70s, early 80s, that was such a, you know, I mean, it was such an uphill struggle versus maybe even where we would be today in an education system in the Western world, in that there's a lot of those mechanisms in place. But I'm sure your father was coming up against challenges at all parts of the way, and teachers, whilst trying to do their best, had their limitations as well. So
that's right. And but what my daddy realised, I think, was, look, Richard may be blind here, but I know that he can do other things, and let's try and find out what they are. Let's give him a chance. Yeah. And that's the same way every child, every person out there. I mean, I think your biggest value is your humanness, is your ability to relate to others, your ability to share the same space and be happy in that space. The rest of the things, like your education and all that, is something that can come if it's natural. If it's not natural, then don't worry about it. And we get so caught up in it. And well, you know, and like, you know, the world has so much more to offer, and you have so much more to offer the world. And like I just think that my daddy realised it in my case. He realised it in my case. He realised that, you know, all that Richard needed was the tools and the mechanisms to be able to relate to the world. Yeah. And he made sure that they were in place as much as he could. So when I look back on it and look back at blindness and look back at all of that, the whole forgiveness thing, then, you know, I was just so lucky in a sense, and so blessed in a sense, that whatever way the stars came together, you know, it moved in a very positive direction for me and all those elements. Yeah.
And that legacy is something that continues in the work of children in Crossfire across the world. As we mentioned briefly, some of the projects, but you know, we have, whilst things can be difficult for us here, and there's a lot of people in a lot of challenging situations, we can often forget that there are other parts of the world where things are even much more challenging, materially and financially, and for I suppose the opportunities that people have in that sense.
Oh, like when you go out to say a project in Africa, like I always talk about the graveyard project, where we ended up supporting 260 people, 60 families who were living and sleeping in a graveyard. And they have absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, I've never experienced what it's like to have nothing. You know, and these people have nothing. And I remember one day coming away thinking, what gets them up in the morning? What gives them their purpose? And the bottom line is, their purpose is the people they're with. Yeah. And when you come down to that really core level, a mother with nothing loves their child as much as a mother with plenty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really, all, you know, obviously I wouldn't recommend the lifestyle that these people have. And the Children of Crossfire is about trying to bring about change. But it taught me, in many ways, a lot of values because, you know, they were happy.
Yeah.
They were happy. When I arrived, they started to sing and dance, as if, you know, you're a very important person or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I just be amazed. And, you know, they have their faith, spirituality, whatever it is. And they also, you know, I think in many ways have the real purpose in life if we can just manage to improve the circumstances in which they have to live, and or they just help the overall health situation and stuff like that there. But, you know, I'd be amazed at it. People always say to me, no, I wouldn't like to go to Africa. I'd be broken-hearted. I would break down and start to cry. You don't. No. And the reason why you don't do it is because it's amazing how happy the people are.
And happiness is contagious in the same way as sadness or any feelings can be contagious. So if we surround ourselves with happy people, we're more likely to be happy ourselves, aren't we?
Right.
And I suppose there's that. It is on the to-do list. So I'll have to certainly. I have a few friends that have been to Africa now. Anybody that you speak to have come back with the same stories and the same feeling that whilst there's so much hardship on one side, there is so much happiness and, as you said, the faith, the spirituality, and the human compassion that they have for each other.
And I mean, it's amazing. And I think, you know, I'd love you to go out with Children of Crossfire sometime to visit the projects. And anybody, without exception, that has gone out there to visit, they just come away, and it does adjust your value system. It does adjust the things you worry about and think about, and helps put your own life into perspective. And, you know, to me, I never cease to be re-energized when I go out there. You know, it is a very thought-provoking experience.
And we'll extend that interview to that invitation to any of our viewers watching in this afternoon as well. I'm sure Children of Crossfire would be delighted to have a few more volunteers on board as well. And that's, I suppose, the main purpose for having, well, not the main purpose, but one of the purposes for having you here this afternoon is to raise awareness of Children of Crossfire. And we have an evening with Richard Moore coming up in Newry on the 19th of June in the Canal Court. But not just, we've a number of other guests on that evening as well. So we've Andrea Begley, who Andrea herself is visually impaired, and again has taken what she can in her voice, and enhanced the lives of so many there as well. And we hope to have a local guy here, Ryan Cinnamon, and Ryan lost both his legs a few years ago now, but has went on to, you know, very much inspire young people and the whole community really on his ability to still engage in sports, and has become very recently the first person in Ireland to pass his driving test in an unadjusted car. So he's able to use just an automatic car and his prosthetic limbs to drive the vehicle. So it'll be an amazing evening.
As well.
And Mayor McFetters should be joining us, yes, for some humour and music. We've some lovely musicians along with Andrea as well. So, but I think the common theme running through the evening is, you know, how we can make the most of life, despite what challenges life might throw at us. So I hope it'll be a very inspiring and enjoyable evening for everybody. And then we've I suppose keeping on the same, for me, a number of years ago I did a fire walk for Children of Crossfire, and I think you did it with me that evening as well, Richard.
I think so.
It was up in Derry.
That's right.
And the big part of, I suppose, a fire walk really is it's to feel the fear and do it anyway, and it's allowing us in a relatively controlled environment to overcome fears. And some people have a lot of fears around possibly even forgiveness in terms of their own abilities and different things like that. But I find the fire walk was a great attempt at allowing you to see how, with the right attitude, because it really is mindset that gets you through a fire walk, because you have hot coals there that you're going to have to walk over, and unless you get your mind into the right place, everything else would tell you not to do that.
That's right. No, you're right. I enjoyed that. I mean, you're right. The fire walk, like, I mean, it's an incredible thing. I never thought I'd walk across hot coals, but the training and that's amazing. But you're right. It's an example of how your mind can either allow you to collapse under a thing or take control of it. And it's the same way any challenge in life.
Well, that was what I loved mostly about the firework, particularly as a fundraiser, is because you get that example of, well, I can translate what I've learned here into other aspects of my life as well, and use it for all sorts of challenges. So there's lots happening locally, hopefully over the next coming months for children in Crossfire, and I know you've been out speaking to some of the schools and that today as well. So how has that just been well received?
The schools was great. I mean, I always enjoy going to schools because young people, you get the sort of the raw material in many ways, and they asked all the questions that maybe adults would be a bit more sanitized about asking, and I love that because, you know, young people need to be exposed to stories like mine, like Ryan's, for example. And I haven't met Ryan, but from what I've been told about Ryan, he's an amazing young man. And you know, young people need as much exposure to that as possible. And you know, we were in St Joseph's School down here, and also St Coleman's, and like the young people, first of all, are so well behaved, and secondly, you know, ask very interesting questions about Charles, about blindness, about things like that. And I think that when they meet somebody like me who's prepared to talk openly about all aspects of my story, about the soldier, about blindness itself, about dealing with blindness, then they're really inquisitive about it. I'm always say I'm lucky, Joanne, I have a story to tell, because I always feel sorry for somebody going to talk in a school who doesn't have a story to tell.
It's pretty intimidating. It is definitely an intimidating
and the other
environment.
thing is I don't have to look at them, which is great because it makes it easier.
I had a group of P7s I was talking to a few weeks ago, and I never have been in front of a more intimidating bunch. Because children can be, because you like that, you don't know what question is coming next, because they're likely to ask everything and anything.
And it's good. It's good, and it's good that the young people can feel free. They ask that, and to be fair to the teachers, they are trying to expose the young people. Like a lot of demands in schools, and teachers get results, which is sad in its own wee way. But you know, but like teachers themselves want to expose children as much as they possibly can, and young people to stories like mine, and I've definitely seen that quite a lot, and you know, and it's amazing how the young people engage with it, and you know, blindness itself is an interesting journey, and you know, I always say, like, you know, the great thing, one of the greatest things about blindness is I rely on people a bit more than, say, you would in certain circumstances. And it's amazing how often, you know, I'd be sitting on the bus going from Derry to Belfast, and many people, particularly young people, would come up to me when we get into Belfast or back into Derry, and they would say, "Mr. Murr, do you need any help? Or do you go in and you want me to take you somewhere?" And I remember one girl, I was sitting on the bus one time, and she tapped me on the shoulder from behind and says, "I just want to let you know, my name's," I can't remember, say Donna, "my name's Donna, and I'm sitting here behind you, and if you need any help, just turn around and ask." And I just think, you won't experience that in your bus journey to Belfast because you don't need it. But I experience it. And I love it, absolutely love it, because it just shows a sheer compassion, kindness and generosity. And even been down here today, you, Gemma, Jack and Deborah, and the genuine willingness to help me and help children in Crossfire, to help change the lives of other people. I cannot thank blindness enough for that experience.
Well, I think a lot of us would agree that we can't thank you enough for sharing that experience, and that gift, the gift that you receive from humanity. It's humanity really at its best, but to be able to acknowledge that and see it is you know, it's phenomenal.
It's fantastic.
And and I think we often forget that young people, they get a hard time, young people, quite a bit, but they really are. They're human beings at the core of it, with a huge heart, most of them, and it's fantastic that you come across so many positive stories on a regular basis. Well, Richard, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I immensely looking forward to the night on the 19th of June. So where I'm sure we'll have a lot more stories and a lot more fun and entertainment as well. So thank you very much,
Thank
Richard.
you, Joanne. Thanks very much.
You.
All right, then. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew.